Uh, he was acclaimed posthumously and given the burden of a priest by the Bishop of Kumbo, Bishop Dr. Cornelius Esmo, at the time, 1986. There's a very important letter he wrote to you on the September 6, 1954, which is very important, which he wrote to you. This is to show the affection which he had for Professor Lantum. So the letter goes thus, very short letter. That's one of the things of Professor Fonlon was a very direct person. He didn't write long letters. Very direct person. So this is what he said. We are almost coming to an end, but it's important this letter be read. So it's this. Okay, here we go. It's on page. Here we go. So I have it here, it's on page 13. It says, Bernard Fonlon accepted the new role that he had been destined to play in society. He left it all in the hands of God, having left the seminary. While at Onitsha on May 6 of September 1954, he wrote in his diary. Very important, let's listen to what he wrote in his diary. When I look at my life, at the course it has taken, at the shaping it has received, I feel that perhaps I am headed for a share in the leadership of my people. These, therefore, are the hallmarks of leadership that I must bear should that role fall to my lot, namely, comprehensive learning, death to the world, that was why he was detached to the world, moral energy, that was why he had moral integrity, love of my people, that was why he loved his people, of Kumbo, who gave them water, economic independence, very important. Fonlon had his economic independence. Assiduous industry, that was why he studied a lot and published many books. Concord with co-workers, Concord. He was always in relationship with friends like Professor Lantum. Union with God, very important. So, union with God was the last point in the statement, and this was published in Cameroon Panorama, issue 190, October 1977, page 22 and 23. Okay, Professor Lantum, let's go to 1954 when he left the seminary. What happened? He left the seminary, he was found in the world, and he was given a scholarship.
He went to teach in Credit King's College.
Okay. Before going for scholarship, he went to teach in Credit King College in Onitsha. And after that, what happened?
There he decided to do further studies now.
Okay. You mentioned that he was given a scholarship by his former rector in CKC, but it was conditional. It was conditional that he had to return to CKC and teach for 3 years.
Yes.
Did he do that?
No.
Okay. So
When he said that, I had done years.
okay.
And I saw a doctor every day.
Okay.
Because I did not come with Cameroon government.
Yes.
Now the Cameroonian needed a scholarship.
So you informed the president in the interesting.
And then they informed the authorities. I don't know how they do it.
Okay, and he was awarded.
I was awarded a scholarship to go to Ireland
Okay.
to study French.
Interesting. So he leaves and goes to Ireland, University of Cork. And during that time, there's a letter he writes to you, very important. This is what he says in the letter. Well done. No. By January 1955, he was in Cork. In a letter to me, he wrote, that I am in a university today is one of the most wonderful things of my life. He writes this letter to you. To me, it teaches one lesson that has been deep into the substance of my soul. That God never let down those who put their trust in Him. January 30th. So this is a very powerful letter. Fonlon is telling Professor Lantum that the fact that he's in the university is a sign that God never let down those who put their trust in him. So we can see the faith which Fonlon has here. Fonlon is a man of faith, profound faith and hope in God.
Yes.
Profound faith and hope in God. That's why I wanted to read the letter. Very important, very important. So, on October 2nd, 1955, he wrote another letter to you. So this shows how he loved you. What did he say in the letter? Well done. So he always called you Dan.
Yeah.
He didn't call you Lantum.
No.
Or he preferred your Christian name.
Yes, done, yeah.
Daniel. So he said, well done. This is a time for rejoicing. So I will leave off preaching for next time. Yet, son, so he used to address you as son.
Yes.
This is serious. Yet, son, there are just two things I would want you to bear in mind right from the start. Number one, take your studies as it were by storm. I have learned from very personal experience that when you study like mad at the beginning of a course, the later work is made easier. So this is the advice Fonlon is giving Professor Fonlon. He said you have to begin studying like a madman so that it will be easier later. Then he says, the later work is made easier. Try it and tell me a year or two after. That was the first advice. The second advice, in this hour of victory, remember that humility is the only attitude that shall bring greater victories. So he's advising you to be humble. Don't give it any chance to go to your head. And remember that this is not the end, but the beginning of the end. So this is very important. Fonlon is telling Professor Lantum, study hard and be humble. Very important stuff. Very important stuff. So that is in 1955. So he was
He's writing from Cook.
yes. So he's writing from Cork to you. He's already there. He kept sending you mail and letters. And in 1957, something happened. Something very important happened in 1957. Mr. Basse was a contemporary of Bernard Fonlon at Cork University, and he visited Ibadan. And you happened to be in Ibadan at the time, and you met him by chance in a party. And he told you about one Cameroonian called Fonlon, who was the star. Who was the star in Cork at the time? Everybody knew Fonlon, so intelligent man. Okay, very bright.
He was studying French.
Can you imagine that, studying French, and he was extremely bright. And he graduated with a Bachelor of Honors.
Yes. Second class, because they wouldn't give first class to
Every black man. Oh, so they gave him second class. Interesting.
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. So that was 1957. After that, where did he study? After that bachelor degree, he began a master's in.
No.
Okay. Could we know what he?
He went to University of
Oxford.
Oxford.
Okay.
To do a BA degree in English.
English, interesting. After that, to Sorbonne.
And after doing the BA degree in English,
Yes.
he then went back to Cork.
Okay.
And did a master's and a PhD.
Interesting. Interesting. So that was 1961. After getting his PhD in 1960, he returns to Cameroon in 1961 and he arrives in Boya, from what he said in your book. And that's a very important year in Cameroon. It is the plebiscite.
Yeah.
So you were informed by Father Ivo Ndicha. Ivo Ndicha informed you that Fonlon was back and that he was in Boya. And it was exactly 10 years since you had parted away with Fonlon, because that was the last party when you went to Douala.
Yes.
So you were very excited to meet him, to meet your master. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Fonlon comes back to Cameroon. What did he do when he came back to Cameroon? From here, I read that he was recruited as he was working in the Prime Minister's office with Dr. Fonja.
Yes.
So what was he doing? Reading newspapers and
He was Assistant Secretary General down the post.
Okay.
Assistant Secretary General of the Prime Minister's Office.
Okay.
But his main activity was reading French papers, translating it to English, so I wanted to read.
Because Foncha could not read.
Fonta could not read French.
Interesting. So you see the importance of Fonlon learning French. He comes back and he's a bridge between the French Cameroon and the English Cameroon. Very important. Very important. So, in the meantime, he receives a letter from the University of Cork. He receives a letter, very important letter. You mentioned that in your article number page 17, which I have here. And the letter says, very important letter. The letter says, the letter is telling him that, and the letter was in French. And the letter read, j'ai présidé le jury qui a conféré au professeur docteur Fonlon en 1961 le grade de docteur de la National University of Ireland, PhD. J'ai été d'ailleurs déjà un des examinateurs de sa thèse pour la maîtrise en 1958 et me trouve dans la position de pouvoir témoigner de la solide de son travail et de la vigueur de ses études et de ses recherches dans plusieurs domaines. So this is his supervisor confirming that yes, he got a doctorate degree and that he distinguished himself. This is very important. And another letter came, which he spoke to you, with you.
He showed me.
He showed you the letter?
He gave the letter. He showed me that I can quote the letter.
Exactly. That's interesting.
And I keep those things here.
That's true. That's so lovely. So there's another thing you mentioned that he said in his next step, the next step was the preparation of a thesis on La Poésie et le Réveil de l'Homme Noir, 1961. He did this under my direction. Now I'm translating what I read in French. The work was excellent and was highly praised by our external examiner. I hope it will be published. So the work was so nice, his doctorate thesis, that his professor recommended that it be published. So Dr. Fonlon is, I believe, the most distinguished and outstanding student that I have ever had in my 30 years as professor and head of department of Romance languages from 1939 to 1969. So this was written by Professor Edna Brie Costigan, and we was the emeritus professor of Romance. So with that, Fonlon returned to Cameroon. He's highly respected because he has earned many degrees. He works with Fonlon, with Django Foncha in Boya. And then what happens afterward? Afterward, you mentioned in your article that they speak to us about the national anthem.
At that time, they were talking about the unification of the two
Cameroon, French and English.
Yeah. And the governor of East Cameroon was living in Boya, invited Fonlon.
Okay.
And discussed the importance of the national anthem with him.
Okay.
And asked him to write the national anthem in English and in French.
Okay.
Which he did.
Interesting.
The governor also wrote, but Fonlon wrote.
Okay.
And his version was read in Parliament.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
His version was read in Parliament from what I read in the book, and this is very important to note. His anthem, so it was.
We should know.
So the anthem was approved by a respective Cameroon by the Cameroon House of Assembly, and presented at the Fonlon Constitutional Conference. This was serious, which held from 17 to 21st of July 1961 for the ratification in October 1st, 1961. And the anthem was very interesting. The anthem is here, it's in it. O Cameroon, thou cradle of our fathers, holy shrine where in our midst they now repose. Their tears and blood and sweat thy soil did water. On thy hills and valleys once their tillage rose. Dear fatherland, thy worth no tongue can tell. How can we ever pay thy due? Love and peace will be to thy name ever true. And then we have the chorus, land of promise, land of glory, thou of life and joy, our only store. Thine the honor, thine devotion, and deep endowment for evermore. So you see, the English Fonlon was an expert in the English language, and he was the one who wrote this anthem, and we have been singing the anthem till today.
Not today.
Right? Till today, right?
When he wrote this,
yes,
it was accepted.
Okay.
But in Parliament there was a debate.
Wow, really?
That one group of Anglophones
Yes.
had in 1928
Yes.
it would be a national anthem.
Good.
So they modified that one and modified Fonlon as a version.
Okay.
There's something now which we think which is neither Fonlon, neither the other one.
Okay, but this one was this one approved?
Approved by what Cameroon Parliament
Okay,
and settled by National Parliament.
I see.
From the East Cameroon, West Cameroon.
Okay,
So the scholars came in with this criticism.
I see. I see. Interesting. So now, let's go to the interpreter fact. So what happened is Fonlon comes back, and there is one of his friends who recommends him to be an interpreter of Ayijo. He's called Manfred Epo. Was the first federal administrator for West Cameroon from Douala, so he could speak Pidgin. But he was in France at the time. He recommended, he said, Fonlon would be good to play a role, and he played an extraordinary role during this Fumban conference.
Yes.
He was an interpreter.
Yes. They had another interpreter.
Okay.
Who did a poor job during the first day. So Fonlon was called.
Exactly. Okay. And Fonlon did a wonderful job.
Day 2 and day 3.
So that was the first major contribution of Fonlon in Cameroon. He was an interpreter during that conference. He did a wonderful job. Recommended by William Eteke Mbomoa, who was in Paris at the time. So the Fumban Constitutional Conference of 1961, Fonlon was there. He was the interpreter. Another second thing was that he was also an interpreter during the preliminary meetings in preparation for the October 1st reunification. He was doing the translations. So this attests to the fact that he was a bridge builder. He built the bridge,
Yes.
separating the French and the English. Now, after that conference, something happened. Ayijo summoned Fonlon in Yaoundé
To come and work for him.
to come and work for him because of his extraordinary job at the conference. So this is very important. And you noted that Ayijo loved him so much. He had great trust in him because Fonlon was simple, honest, loyal.
And he didn't want to be a politician.
Exactly. So this is a point that has to be noted. Ayijo invites Fonlon to work with him, but Fonlon does not want to be a politician. So how does that happen? How did that happen?
Well, to be a politician, you should be a minister.
Exactly.
Fonlon said, no, he didn't want to be a minister. I don't want to be a translator.
Okay.
He did the bilingual conference.
Yes.
And he worked like that for quite some time.
I see. Interesting. So he worked as an interpreter to President Ayijo and Foncha. Whenever they met, he was always okay. Interesting. And apart from that, he was the first Cameroonian of mission responsibilities for translation services at the presidency of the Federal Republic of Cameroon. You've mentioned that. And he also worked in the public office, assimilating his. He also worked in the public office, which Ayijo assimilated him and owned as his own personal family. So Ayijo loved him very much. So let's go to Fonlon's status. So Ayijo advised him to enroll in professional corps of the civil service, so that he could his job as a civil servant, his status could be maintained. So that was a good thing, from what I read in your article.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the job of being a bilingual secretary
Yes.
was not a civil service job.
Exactly.
So he advised someone to register in the University of Yaoundé one
Okay.
as medical based on his qualification.
Exactly.
He did.
Thank you about that. So in 1962, what happened? There's the Federal University of Cameroon was established. Was it in 1962 or 72? The University of Yaoundé. So from what I read in your book, it was in 1962. So during that time, Fonlon was recruited as associate professor, maître de conférence.
Yes, based on his PhD.
Because of his PhD, interesting. And there's another important letter which I would like you to shed more light on. That was a letter Fonlon addressed to West Cameroonians in his powerful foreword. So the letter was written by Amadou Ahidjo. The letter was General Policy to the Ebolova Congress of the Union Camerounaise by President General Amadou Ahidjo. That was from the 4th to the 8th of July 1962.
Party meeting, party conference.
Party conference, but there was a foreword written by Fonlon. And the message in that foreword was powerful. It says, decolonization and nation building are Herculean tasks. The lion was now unleashed and began to charge and roar. Formators who released Fonlon from the seminary were right. So Fonlon now was playing a special role. In that letter, he wrote very, very powerful things in that letter, which I'm going to cite later. Interesting. So, because of that, he became a public figure in Cameroon.
When you work in the presidency, you are a public figure. And then when you are addressing the public as he did,
Yes,
you are now a public figure.
I see. So he became a public figure and recognized. Professor Lantum, let's go back to this public figure. In this wonderful book which you published, Dr. Bernard Fonlon, An Intellectual in Politics, very, very important. There's some things you mentioned there which struck my attention, which about his political life, which distinguished him. So he was at the beginning he told Ahidjo, I want to work with you, but I don't want to be a politician. And then later he was made minister.
Deputy Foreign Minister.
Okay, and later Minister of Communications.
Minister of Transport, Post and Telecommunications.
Okay.
And eventually Minister of Public Health.
And you studied health, so you work with Fonlon.
Yes, I was a public health, also a professor of public health.
Okay, interesting. So you work hand in hand with Professor Fonlon.
Yes.
Okay. So what can you tell us about Fonlon's character as a minister?
Someone could not understand how you could have a medical school without a hospital.
Okay. So there was a medical school, but there was no hospital.
There was no hospital.
Interesting.
And the only hospital was a French hospital. The general hospital, called General Hospital, was run by the French.
Okay.
So when they seized it and gave it to the dean of the medical school,
Interesting.
Professor Monacosa,
Okay.
and his team, including me. So we began to work by the general hospital
Okay.
and began to teach students there. Practical work.
Yes. So that was a great move by Fonlon.
Yes.
Another great move was regarding the transport setup. I hear he established the Cameroon Airlines.
Yes.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting. Another point you mentioned in your book, Professor Lantum, going through okay, before we go to the book, let's have a break and we'll be back.
Who are you?